that he's going to make. Now, we've given you the story about Jeff Brom. That's the one that today was the big story in college football when we opened up the day. How about Sonny Dykes? Sonny Dykes leading TCU to that unbeaten regular season into the Big 12 championship game, and he has agreed to a new contract, rewarding him, of course, for what the adrenaline rush he gave to the program. His contract has been extended for 1 year through 2028, and according to sources, this is an article from Pete Thamel, ESPN, indicated his pay will be boosted to near the top levels of the Big 12. For example, Mike Gundy, I think, has the best contract at $7.5 million a year.
Well, he's done something that only one other team in the Big 12 has done, and that's get a team to the playoffs. So absolutely, he's earned that raise.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big jump up. I'm sure they weren't expecting to make that as quickly as they're making it, but they're going to be raking in some big CFP cash, right? They're mopping up all of the positive PR that money can't buy, and yeah, I think he's well earned that, making history, and in so many ways for TCU. The one thing, just not winning that Big 12 title. I do think that, like, ultimately you do want to be in the CFP more than anything, especially in this 4-team era. But that not having a Big 12 title for this year, I think, is going to sting. For the players more so than probably our memories will even, go back to, because we'll move on along and focus more on what happens for them in the playoff and focus on what happens with Kansas State in their matchup with Alabama. But to have a team go undefeated in the regular season and not have a conference title to show for it, that's just a killer blow. So hopefully they can make some noise in the playoff. I don't think many people are giving them any chance against Michigan, just in the general sort of opinion world. There's a lot of, thoughts about, Michigan and Georgia or Michigan, Ohio State. And I don't think a whole lot of people are thinking the Frogs have much of a chance. So I'm so ready to see that game unfold. But yeah, he's very deserving. That's not a surprise. He got a bump, and yeah, he's making history.
Yeah, great question, by the way, in a poll. And I don't know what the other conferences, like a Michigan, Ohio State, they don't want the other guy to ever be successful. Alabama, Auburn, they never want the other person to be successful. You have rivalries within the Big 12, obviously. But you wonder of the Big 12 fan base, because of what they as a group went through in the the summer of 2021, the recovery in fall of 2021, and then even some of the unknown when USC, UCLA popped. How many Big 12 fans want TCU to win the semifinal game?
I think, that probably is a thumbs up from a majority of the schools, but in this area, no, that's a no-go for me. If I'm looking at it from a Baylor perspective, I understand why it's important for them to do so, but I think you've got to root against them because of just the rivalry. But
you're talking about Baylor fan base, right?
From the Baylor perspective, from the Baylor perspective, I think that, like I said, most Big 12 fan bases are probably rooting for them. Oklahoma and Texas probably aren't. Because they're just petty like that. And I think if it was reversed, we'd be the same way. Like, no, we don't want to see Oklahoma and Texas win a playoff game on their way out if you're looking at it from the Big 12 side of things. So, yeah, I think if you're a Kansas fan, you probably want TCU to win, right? If you're an Iowa State fan, why not? Like, what does it really affect you all that much? But if you're Baylor or, like, Tech, even, I don't know.
There's the jealousies involved. Yeah.
Well, and it's just you don't want them to have that hanging over your head on the recruiting trail of, like, we want a playoff game.
Do you think TCU fans were excited when Baylor won the Big 12 title?
No, absolutely not.
No. And so there's a little bit of that. It's just a question I had to throw out there.
I would think that for Tech and Baylor fans, TCU being in the CFP is like flossing. You know that it's beneficial to you as a whole, but doesn't mean that you want to do it every day. That's
why you should go to Stonewood Dental.
Exactly. So it's just, I don't know. I'm sure they're like, okay, we know this is good for the conference. We know, but would rather not have to deal with it because.
Yeah, I just think that would be fun to watch, and we'll probably get more into that at another time.
I've got another
By the way,
perspective.
speaking of another team, go ahead.
If you are those schools as well in this era of expansion, do you want that school that's based in Fort Worth, that's a top 25-ish market, that is a Texas brand that has a lot of success? Do you really want them going and adding all this stuff to their resume so when the Big Ten goes sniffing around again for a Texas rep, or if another conference is poking around? I think TCU's at the top of your list, is it not? I mean, it's got to be Of the Big 12 selections,
Yeah.
it has to be right there near the top. Maybe you say Kansas instead because of basketball, but I think TCU with the DFW, I mean, that's the school that we looked at. Like, if the Big Ten were to go into Texas, where would they go? They'd have to go to basically TCU. They'd have to steal A&M or Texas from the SEC. So I'm just saying, like, down the road, long scope vantage point, I think that's another down the road reason why you might not want them to go win a playoff game.
Will be interesting to see how their attendance changes because of this year. You get people get excited when a team starts to win. That's a normal human like instinct or whatever reaction. So, but also here's another note. And Paxton on the chat room sent this to me. We don't have this to show you, but he sent this per bookies.com. TCU right now is the current favorite to get to Hudson Card from Texas. Other teams on the list include Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Kentucky, and UTSA. UTSA is about to get their quarterback back, and Frank Harris is going to make that announcement most likely in the next 15 to 20 minutes. So that's interesting. And that's from bookies.com. Paxton, thanks for sharing that with me. That's just a little nugget to throw out there.
Nothing should surprise you, although I would think that Sonny Dykes feels pretty good considering the guy he thought his backup quarterback is sitting in New York right now. That was what it was in August. Now, things changed, and you just don't change the hot hand. But if he felt confident enough to give Chandler Morris the job over Max Duggan before the season started, I would think he's probably pretty confident in Chandler Morris going into the offseason.
Well, there's nothing wrong with having two good quarterbacks, and they proved that this year. Now, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a lot of schools to pick from, including Notre Dame and TCU, as you mentioned. I think that'd obviously be a really good pickup. We did a segment, didn't have much time to plan for it, but Hudson Card, that segment we talked about quarterbacks, I mean, he would definitely, compared to the way I talked about him yesterday, probably be higher up than I gave him, than I placed him. Like, I debated it more last night and actually sat around and kind of looked into it. And, yeah, I mean, he's definitely high up on the quarterback portal rankings. And so whoever gets him is going to be getting a really good player who's got more than a year to play. I mean, I think that's the important thing, too. But TCU, that's not something I really considered was him staying in the conference, but that would make some sense even with what they have on campus. I mean, is Chandler Morris better than Hudson Card? I don't know that. I have no idea if that's the case, and I'd bank on no right now. So you do what you can to get the best players on the field. But, yeah, it's a good problem for Sonny Dykes to potentially have, but this obviously has a little bit more to play out.
All right, so